Dad, Mom is at the hospital. She's dying.
The wedding hall froze when the doors slammed open. Music died. Smiles cracked. An 11-year-old girl stood there, shaking, holding a newborn baby wrapped in a hospital blanket. Her eyes searched the room until they locked on the groom. "Dad," she cried, her voice breaking. "Mom is at the hospital. She's dying." Whispers exploded. Chairs scraped. The groom's face drained of color as the bride tightened her grip on his arm. "She's lying," someone muttered. But then a woman in nurse scrubs stepped forward, trembling. "She's telling the truth," Julia said softly. "I treated her mother." The baby whimpered. The girl hugged him closer. "I walked all the way here," she sobbed. "Mom said you wouldn't come." In that moment, love collided with lies, and a perfect life began to fall apart. Secrets clawed their way into the light. And that's where her story truly began. Before we dive deeper, please, if you're listening to this right now, I want to prove my stepmom wrong. She said I can't even reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me show her that stories like this matter. Subscribe to Jossy's Folklore, and let's keep breathing life into tales that refuse to die. Now, let's continue. The wedding hall still smelled of roses and expensive perfume, but the air had turned heavy, like something sacred had been cracked open. Guests who had been smiling moments ago now stared in disbelief at the little girl standing near the entrance. She was small for her age, her sneakers dusty, her dress wrinkled like she had slept in it. In her arms, the newborn baby whimpered softly, unaware that his arrival had just split a life in two. Emily's arms trembled, but she refused to lower the baby. Her eyes stayed fixed on Mark, the man in the tailored tuxedo who suddenly looked like he didn't recognize himself anymore. He had built this moment carefully. The grand hall, the violinists, the perfect bride. Everything was supposed to erase the past. Instead, the past had walked straight in, barefoot and breathing. "Someone get her out of here," Sarah whispered sharply, her smile frozen like glass. She leaned toward Mark, her manicured nails digging into his sleeve. "This is a joke, right?" Mark swallowed. His throat felt dry. The room waited. Emily took one shaky step forward. "I didn't want to come," she said, her voice small but clear. "Mom said you were busy, but the nurse said she might not make it." A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Phones slowly began to lift. This wasn't part of any wedding program. Julia stood near the back, her nurse badge still clipped to her scrubs because she had come straight from a double shift. She hadn't planned to stay long. Just drop the gift. Say congratulations. Leave. But when she heard Emily's voice, something inside her clenched hard. Julia recognized that hospital blanket instantly. Mark finally moved. "Emily," he said quietly, like speaking louder might shatter what little control he had left. "You shouldn't be here." Emily blinked back tears. "Mom told me to find you. She said you'd listen if you saw the baby." The baby whimpered again, his tiny face scrunching up. Julia stepped forward without thinking. "She's been walking for nearly an hour," Julia said, her voice steady but firm. She refused to put the baby down. Said she was scared someone would take him. All eyes swung toward Julia now. "Who are you?" Sarah snapped. Julia met her gaze. "I'm a nurse. I work at St. Mary's." Lisa's room. The name hit Mark like a slap. Lisa. The name he hadn't spoken out loud in months. The name he had pushed into silence, into unanswered messages and missed calls. The woman he had promised forever, until forever became inconvenient. "Security," Sarah hissed, panic flickering behind her eyes. "Get them out." But no one moved. Even the guards hesitated. Something about the way Emily clutched the baby made it impossible to treat this like a scene to be erased. Mark raised his hands. "Please," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "Everyone, let's take a breath." Julia shook her head. "You've taken enough breaths, Mark. Lisa doesn't have that luxury right now." A collective gasp moved through the hall. Emily's voice cracked. "She keeps asking for you," she whispered. "She thinks if you come, she'll be okay." That was the moment Mark looked away. Have you ever watched someone choose themselves over someone who needed them most? Sarah tightened her grip on Mark again. "This is manipulation," she said louder now. "You said she was unstable." You said she made things up. Emily stared at her. My mom doesn't lie, she said simply. Silence. Julia stepped closer to Emily and gently adjusted the baby's blanket. You did a brave thing, she whispered. Both of you. Mark's jaw clenched. Julia, this is not the place. No, but this is the truth's favorite place. Right where you least expect it. She turned to the guests. Lisa gave birth 12 hours ago. Emergency C-section. Complications. She asked for him. Julia nodded toward Mark. He didn't come. Sarah's eyes flashed. Because he's here. With me. His wife. A few people shifted uncomfortably at the word wife. Emily hugged the baby tighter. Mom said love doesn't disappear just because you stop showing up. Something in the room broke at that. Mark exhaled sharply. Emily, I'll come to the hospital later. I promise. Later, Julia echoed. Mark, she's hemorrhaging. Later may not exist. The baby let out a thin cry, almost like punctuation. What would you do? The narrator asked softly, if the lie you built your life on started crying in your arms. Sarah's composure finally cracked. This is insane, she shouted. You're ruining our wedding. Emily flinched. Julia stepped between them without hesitation. You don't get to call this insane when a child carried her brother through traffic to save her mother. The guests whispered openly now. Someone was crying. Someone else was recording. Mark's voice dropped. Emily, go home. Julia, take them home. I'll handle this. Emily shook her head slowly. Mom said if you didn't come, I should tell everyone why. Mark stiffened. Why? She took a breath that sounded too big for her chest. Because you didn't want us anymore. The words landed heavy and final. Julia watched Mark carefully. She had seen men like him before. Polished, powerful, practiced at disappearing when things got messy. But this was different. This was a child. This was blood. Julia reached into her bag and pulled out a folded document. Lisa's medical file, she said quietly. The part you never asked about. Sarah's face went pale. Why would you bring that here? Because, Julia said, eyes never leaving Sarah, something isn't right. Mark looked between them. What do you mean? I mean, Julia continued. Lisa's 4 meds were changed without authorization. I caught it this morning. I reported it. And the timing? She glanced at Sarah's white dress. Convenient. A stunned hush fell over the room. Sarah laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. You're accusing me? On my wedding day? I'm protecting my patient, Julia replied. And her children. Emily looked up at Julia, hope flickering through her tears. Does that mean Mom might live? Julia knelt in front of her. It means we're going to fight. The baby stirred, his tiny fingers curling around Emily's dress. Life insisting on itself. Mark felt the room closing in. His reputation, his image, his carefully curated future, all unraveling because he thought silence was safer than responsibility. Mark, Julia said, standing again. You can come now, or you can live with the choice forever. Sarah shook her head violently. If you leave, she whispered, don't come back. Mark hesitated. That hesitation told everyone everything. He took a step back instead of forward. Emily's face fell, not in surprise, but in understanding. The kind that ages a child years and seconds. Julia exhaled slowly. Then I'm taking them, she said. And I'll make sure the truth doesn't stay quiet. She took Emily's free hand. The girl nodded, tears rolling silently down her cheeks as she adjusted the baby once more. As they turned toward the doors, the music never resumed. The flowers sagged. The dream lay in pieces on the marble floor. And behind them, a man stood frozen, watching the family he abandoned walk away without him. The hospital lights buzzed softly as Julia pushed through the sliding doors, Emily walking beside her, the newborn cradled carefully against her chest. The city outside still sparkled with celebration, but inside these walls, life moved at a different pace, measured in heartbeats, monitors, and quiet prayers whispered when no one was listening. Lisa lay pale against the white sheets, her skin almost blending into the pillow. Tubes traced delicate paths along her arms. When her eyes fluttered open and landed on Emily, a weak smile tugged at her lips. You came, Lisa whispered. Emily rushed to her side. I brought him. she said, lifting the baby just enough. I did everything you said. Lisa's eyes filled instantly. You're so brave, she murmured. Her gaze shifted to Julia. Thank you for believing her. Julia nodded gently. Rest. We'll take it from here. But even as the room settled into quiet, Julia's mind refused to rest. Something wasn't right. She stepped into the hallway and pulled up Lisa's digital chart on a nearby terminal. The medication dosage change stared back at her, subtle, almost invisible unless you knew exactly what you were looking for. The adjustment had been logged under a temporary access code. Julia's stomach tightened. She traced the timestamp, cross-checked the security log. Her breath caught. The access badge belonged to Sarah. Have you ever trusted someone so completely, only to realize they were the danger all along? Julia felt a cold clarity settle over her. This wasn't neglect. This wasn't coincidence. This was intent. She moved quickly now, purpose sharp in her stride. At the nurse's station, she requested security footage from the East Wing corridor. A few minutes later, the grainy video played. There, Sarah, still in her wedding gown, slipping into Lisa's room earlier that afternoon. She glanced over her shoulder, then leaned toward the force stand. Her hands moved fast. Practiced. Julia paused the footage. There it was. Proof. Behind her, Mark's voice cracked through the silence. Is she alive? Julia turned slowly. He looked smaller here, stripped of ceremony and applause. For now, Julia said, thanks to timing. And Emily. Mark ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know she'd come here. No, Julia replied evenly. You didn't want to know. He flinched. Where's Sarah? Julia's eyes hardened. You should ask the police. As if summoned by the words, hospital security stepped into the corridor, followed by 2 officers. Julia handed over the footage, her hands steady even as her heart raced. Inside the room, Lisa stirred. What's happening? She whispered. Emily looked at Julia, fear and hope tangled together. Is Mom safe? Julia knelt beside her. She will be. Sarah's scream echoed down the hall minutes later. Rage, disbelief, desperation crashing into one sound. Mark stood frozen as officers escorted her past him. The white dress dragging like a ghost of the future he almost chose. Mark, Sarah shouted. Tell them they're wrong. He didn't move. That was the moment his silence became his sentence. The story didn't end there. It never does. Within days, the footage leaked. The media swarmed. Headlines tore through Mark's empire faster than the truth ever reached Lisa. Sponsors pulled out. Boards demanded answers. His name became synonymous with betrayal. Lisa recovered slowly, painfully, but she recovered. Julia stayed by her side, not as a nurse now, but as family. What would you do, the narrator asked softly, if losing everything finally showed you what truly mattered? Mark came once. He stood in the doorway, guilt heavy in his eyes. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't protect you. Lisa met his gaze, calm but firm. No, she replied. You didn't choose us. And some choices echo forever. Weeks later, Lisa sat in a small community hall, sunlight pouring through the windows. A banner hung behind her, Second Chances Foundation. Emily sat proudly in the front row, the baby asleep in her arms. Julia stood beside them, smiling softly. Pain had not destroyed them. It had reshaped them. From betrayal, truth had risen. From loss, strength had grown. And for the first time, the future didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. The courtroom was quiet in the way only serious rooms get. No music, no whispers, just the weight of consequences hanging in the air. Sarah sat at the defendant's table, her confidence long gone, her eyes darting around as if searching for an exit that no longer existed. The same hands that once adjusted a wedding veil now trembled as evidence played on the screen behind her. The footage was undeniable. A collective breath was held as the judge watched Sarah lean over the force stand, her movements precise, intentional. There was no accident here, no misunderstanding, just cruelty wrapped in silk. Emily squeezed Julia's hand from the gallery. The baby slept peacefully in her lap, unaware that his very existence had helped save his mother. Lisa sat tall beside them, still healing, still scarred, but alive. When the verdict was read, Sarah's shoulders collapsed. Attempted murder, tampering with medical equipment. The sentence followed swiftly. As officers led her away, she looked once toward Mark, expecting something. Support, anger, anything. He stared straight ahead. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters shouted questions Mark could no longer outrun. Did you abandon your family? Did you know your wife tried to kill your ex? Was your image worth their lives? Mark said nothing. Silence had always been his language. His company stock plummeted within days. Partnerships dissolved. Friends vanished. The man who once stood on a decorated altar now stood alone in an empty penthouse, surrounded by things money could buy, but nothing love could fix. Meanwhile, life moved forward for the women he left behind. The Second Chances Foundation opened its doors quietly. No red carpet, no cameras, just help. Lisa spoke to women who had been betrayed, abandoned, forgotten. Julia organized medical support and counseling. Emily helped rock babies whose mothers needed rest. Have you ever noticed, the narrator asks gently, how the strongest families are sometimes the ones we choose? One afternoon, Mark appeared at the foundation's entrance. He looked older, smaller, real. I don't expect forgiveness, he said to Lisa. I just wanted to say, I see what I lost. Lisa studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded, not in reconciliation, but in closure. I hope you learn, she said, for their sake, and yours. She closed the door softly. That night, Emily lay beside her baby brother, watching him breathe. Mom, she whispered, are we going to be okay? Lisa kissed her forehead. We already are, because some endings aren't about getting everything back. They're about finally getting yourself. Moral of the story: betrayal can shatter a life, but truth has a way of rebuilding it stronger. Lisa's pain didn't disappear, but it transformed into purpose. Emily's courage reminded everyone that even the smallest voice can expose the darkest lie. And Julia proved that doing the right thing, even quietly, can save lives. This story teaches us that love isn't proven by promises made in public, but by choices made when no one is watching. And sometimes, losing the wrong people makes room for the right future. If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button for more emotional tales from Jossy's Folklore. And even if it didn't, come on, subscribe anyway. We'll win you over next time. Drop a comment, like the video, and let's keep the stories alive. Thanks for watching.